I have a dirty confession. This is something that took me a few years to finally come up with a solution to manage to keep myself living full-time in my RV. Because I know a lot of people have been quitting it. Some cities are trying to outlaw this type of lifestyle. So for those of us that are urban, urban van dwelling or full-time RV living in cities, like we're not boondocking somewhere like on Crown land or living on a designated RV park or anything like that. I'm literally on the side of the road. Like I stay in an industrial commercial type area, and I've got residential places that way, and that way in 3 directions, right? 3 different directions within just minutes of where I am. And what's really wild is there's a couple of residential places I sometimes go to visit, or when I need to repair my vehicle, I go over to a friend's place, and immediately neighbors complain. My license plate's not registered to those areas, but I'm at a friend's house visiting and also doing repairs on my vehicle, and then I got parts on order that sometimes can take hours or days for the part to arrive. And all of a sudden I've got parking enforcement or police, one or the other, parking enforcement or police. The parking enforcement do not like to door knock. I usually listen and I catch a vehicle pulling up and then a door opening and shutting. I usually catch them outside. And I usually get the response of, "Oh, you live in here?" I'm like, "Yes." Now, I had an incident where I got hostile at parking enforcement while I was waiting on a starter. I had to replace a blown starter. And I got threatening. I was holding the broken starter, the old starter, the damaged one. I was holding it in hand in such a manner that, like, I was going to literally throw it at the parking officer. And I wound up with a cop knocking on my door the following day. He was threatening to tow my RV and a number of things. But he just went off like a playground bully, calling me an asshole. I act like an asshole. I think you're an asshole. Blah, blah, blah. Asshole, asshole, asshole. That's exactly how he was talking to me. Just like an obnoxious, like a professional police officer, a law enforcement officer, was talking down on me like a common playground bully. Like, think back to elementary school, back when we were 9, 10 years old, and being bullied by the big kid, right? And that's basically how this cop was acting towards me. And all I did in response to his barrage of asshole was, "Thanks. I'm not meaning or even trying to be a nice guy, and I really don't give a crap what you think," kind of attitude on my part. And then, anyways, he hit kind of a dead end on his end of it. Instead of trying to intimidate me or catch me in something, like, there was no probable cause on my part. I talked over him. What had happened in the last several years, this is something that's been ongoing with me, is I've lost numerous jobs, all to living in the RV and parking complaints. I cannot do construction because I cannot go into residential neighborhoods at renovation sites. I cannot bring the RV to residential neighborhoods. And that's what was causing all these loss of employment, loss of income. And I just kept on those loss of employment, loss of income. That's all I did. Just kept babbling loss of employment, loss of income. And then named off a couple different jobs that I've lost to him, pointing at the cop. Yet the cop admitted in his side, he didn't know me from Adam, and it's not his intention to just simply go after me and caused me to be unemployed and destitute. He completely, like denied that. All he was doing was responding to citizen complaints. People would call 311, call the bylaw, or, which most of the time was parking enforcement. But then the minute I got threatening towards parking enforcement, and the reason I get threatening towards parking enforcement was there was a previous year where I literally had parking enforcement's supervisor or manager. I had one of their top guys. It wasn't just some normal, guy. Here's a printout of a parking complaint I need you to respond to, and the parking supervisor would send one of his shift officers to come out and deal with it. It got to the point with me where this parking supervisor went on his own personal crusade against me. And it wasn't just me. I would say there's two of us for sure, but there's a fairly significant number of full-time RV and van dwellers throughout the entire city, all doing the same thing. But the one thing I had problems with, this is where I'm talking about my dirty secret, was the waste sewage management. Now, a couple of years back, out of the city of Vancouver, there was a roadway leading up to like one of the beaches that was literally lined with vans and motorhomes all along this one street, just completely lined with it. Now, in the summertime, you would think, well, that's normal. It's camping season. It's the summertime, and everybody converges to the beach, right? In the summers, right? If you ever go up to any popular lakes, like I'm from BC originally, right? That's how I know this. So I'm formerly from Chilliwack, Cultus Lake, right? And nowadays, if you ever try to go up to what they call Main Beach, it is just jam-packed. You're better to take the bus. I think they have transit service that goes up there. You're better to take transit and then walk in, because you'll never find parking during the busy times in the summer, right? And that goes for months, right? Like the beach, the Cultus Lake's Main Beach area is one of the busiest little areas in that region. And anyways, but where I live, okay, so backtrack. Okay, so the long line of RVs parked along the street there leading up to like Kitsilano or some other beach area in Vancouver. And then what was happening was they were finding a lot of these vehicles were derelict. There was people living in them, but then there was also a lot of them are using that flush toilet in the RV. So there's sewage leaks, and then there's sewage dumping, which is a common thing that happens. But in most major cities, sewage dumping is flat out illegal. It's as bad as public urinating and public defecating. It falls into that kind of category. It's unsanitary and unsightly. So when you got an RV that's got a 20-gallon or a 40-gallon, 60-gallon tank, and you're not driving to the regular Sandy dump or using one of those Sandy totes to dump your sewage into a transfer tank to dump it, a lot of them are resorting to dumping down the storm sewers, which is against the law. And I was using other methods, basically fertilizing the ground, which was the reason I end up with my own. I end up getting a lawnmower and keeping always wherever I parked. I always had this lush green lawn that literally grew like 3 or 4 times faster than any other lawn around me. And to avoid getting caught doing these things, a lot of times I'm out at nighttime doing my dumping at the time. And later on, I caught on, or they revealed to me, the police revealed to me, no, you can't do that. Okay, fine, I won't. I'll find another method. I'll find another alternative. Now, I had also said, well, okay, down the street there's a card lock station, and they do have a polygon, an outhouse outside, and I can dump pails into that. And they said that's fine. That no problem. You can do that, right? And then what I started doing was I was popping open a manhole cover, right, a sewer cover, and simply bailing my my sewage tank into that. And I did that for a year. And then all of a sudden, when I revealed that, like, so my last visit with police and bylaw was around 2 years ago, and I told him, I said, no, I don't ground dump anymore. I stopped that. I've never dumped down a storm drain on the side of the street. I've never ever dropped my my sewage waste down the storm drain ever. I just don't. To me, that's just plain unethical, right? Little amounts, one thing, but the large amounts, like when I'm talking about between 4 and 5 big 5-gallon pails, I'm not dumping in the storm drains, right? I'm basically not dumping into the river system, plain and simple, right? Never have, and yet, trying to find an alternative or a legal alternative to avoid sewage dumping or illegal sewage dumping. My last resort was lifting a manhole cover and bailing the pails down through the sewer system. And all of a sudden the cop said, oh no, you can't do that. Yet it was never said before that not to do that. And I looked up all over the internet and found, okay, the reason you're not supposed to lift the manhole cover and dump your shit down the sewer that way is because in the city, homeowners and tenants, right, if you're renting a house or you own a house, you typically pay a water utility. You pay a water utility bill either annually or semi-annually or every few months or whatever, quarterly or whatever it is. And that cost of your water use also covers your sewer service, right? And here I am living on the side of the road, boondocking in my off-grid solar powered motorhome, and I'm just simply popping off the 300 pound steel cover for 10 minutes, right? 5-10 minutes, and using it to dump away my black water. Anyways, I'm not paying for that service. That's the only thing that came up on a Google search. The only reason why it's so-called illegal to dump your RV sewage down a manhole cover. And that was the only thing that came up. But the cop didn't say that. He just simply said, you can't do that. Right? So, yet whenever I lifted that manhole cover, there was cars driving by, people watching, but nobody batted an eye. Nobody said a word. They knew what I was doing. It was plain and simple. They knew what I was doing, but I was dumping it legitimately down. You know, there's already shit flowing through there. I'm already dumping my shit through the shit flow, right? So wasn't like I'm dumping in the ground, not like I'm damaging someone's property or polluting the soil, not like I'm dumping it in a storm sewer where it's, you know, the storm drains like on the roadsides and that. A lot of them flow directly back to either a drainage canal or directly into a river system, and you can't be caught dumping raw sewage. It's against the law. It's illegal, right? And I knew this the whole time. But when I started dumping it in the sewage system, I didn't think I was breaking any laws, but then the cop said, no, you can't do that. And the only thing I concluded why the cop told me that was simply after I searched Google about it, and it was simply because everybody who's housed, like whether you live in a house, an apartment, shared accommodation, you rent a room, right? Anybody who lives in a house, as long as you got running water and somebody's paying for that running water utility, then your sewer service is covered in that cost. Here I am doing it at no cost. I get my water from any outside spigot that I find of any building nearby, right? At no cost. And then I'm dumping my black water at no cost. Now, a couple of places that do have sandy dumps started to charge money. I think they're charged like $10 for the dump service, right? And you would think, oh, for $10, you would think they'd have an attendant who would come out and do it for you. Oh, no. If you're an RV owner and a driver, no, you pull up to the sandy dump and you're still doing it yourself, but you're paying $10 to use their dumping facility. And anyways, I've never once, since 2007 doing this, but only since 2014 with motorhomes, right? I've never once ever paid $10 for a sandy dump. So one place tried to charge me money after previous years. I was always getting free. It was always a free sandy dump service. Everybody who used the sandy dump, typically the cost was covered when you got fuel at the gas station or when you went into the gas station and bought some other merchandise, or like whether it was a food purchase, coffee, or a beverage or anything like that. That cost, when you used the gas station, covered your cost to sandy dump. I never paid money for sandy dump. Okay? Then later on, two places I knew of, a truck stop and another corner gas station nearby, both removed their sandy dumps because of maintenance problems, right? Under-maintained and high cost of maintenance. They just finally got rid of it. They literally yanked the tank or concrete filled it and got rid of the top part, the filler part of it. They just simply got rid of it. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then the only one I know of is like almost an hour's drive south of where I am. And so for me, it would cost me $20 or $30 fuel to run down there with the motorhome, and then an additional $10 to dump 20 gallons, right? And I just simply wasn't doing that. I can't afford that, right? To me, that just wasn't practical. So what I did was I kept on Google, kept searching, right? And I was finally getting a keen interest towards the waterless composting setup, but I'm the only one who doesn't like to handle things twice. And what I mean is, I'm not going to shit in a bucket for a month and then have to clean it out, scoop it out, bag it, and then go throw it in the dumpster. Right? To me, that just wasn't feasible. It didn't make sense to me to do that. So I kept looking up further alternatives, right? Because, okay, when I garbage toss, I don't have garbage. It's not like homeowners. It's not like homeowners and property owners who have garbage and recycling included. When you live on the street, when you live off grid, right? I'm living against all these additional expenses that everybody else is living with. I'm living without all those high costs of living, right? There's certain living costs that I've cut out that just don't exist with me. And when I got to do waste management, I didn't want to have to be caught or seen walking or riding my bike or driving to a dumpster. To me, that just wasn't practical. And I just don't want to smell my shit twice. plain and simple. I just don't want to handle it. I don't want to put my hands in it. I don't want to have to deal with some dirty utensils or whatever to manage it. So what I simply did was, instead of a big 5-gallon, I did start out with a big 5-gallon pail, but for my cat, right? Because he no longer uses, I no longer buy store-bought cat litter. I no longer pay for cat litter. He gets the same sawdust ash mix in his litter boxes. And when I say litter boxes, what happened was he picked an area in the front, over in the front driver's side area where the gas and brake pedal are, and the floor, because it's the only area in the motorhome that's not cluttered, right? Or very minimal clutter. There's an area there, so that way if I need to turn the key and drive, this vehicle's ready to go when I need it to. I don't waste my time moving stuff around. But he started using that area over the carpet, and anyways, I threw down some newspaper just to make sure that, just in case he uses it, I can still clean it up. And then one day I just found a small dollar store plastic little tote bin without a lid. Like, I just found it somewhere on the street. And I brought that home, and it fit in that area just perfect. Like not 100% perfect, but it's small enough that it fits in the area without obstructing anything. And I filled that with the same sawdust and ash mix. The ashes comes from the wood stove. The sawdust comes from all my wood cutting, right? And he uses it all the time. And then all I do, I keep a bunch of tin cans around, because when I'm burning pallets, I accumulate a lot of nails, screws, staples, like a lot of metal comes out of the pallets. And so I have a magnet. I got one of those twisted metal. I got one of those metal hot dog roasting sticks that I cut the end off of it and then modified it, and I attached a magnet onto that hot dog roasting stick, and I use that in the wood stove to fish all the nails out. And then I save any tin cans, soup cans, vegetables, whatever, anything canned foods, I save those cans. And then whenever I accumulate all these nails, I just simply toss them into the cans. And then when those cans get full, I save the lid part, where you use the can opener and that top part of the can comes off. So then after the can is full of nails, I place the lid back in, and I just use a 1/2-inch ratchet extension, and I just simply dent the top of the tin can to hold the lid in, so all those nails are stuck in there. And so all my garbage is simply metal. The majority of all I throw out is metal, right? And I keep it all I keep all that in a metal barrel here in the back of the motorhome, right next to the wood stove. And then when that metal barrel gets full of those soup cans full of nails, I call up a scrap metal buddy and say, hey, when I say, do you got a canister, what I mean is, do you got are you loaded with appliances? I'm looking for washer, dryer, refrigerator, because anything that's hollow, well, here, stuff all this extra metal. These are just tin cans full of burnt nails. Stuff all this extra metal in and cash it in at the scale. There you go, buddy. Have a nice day. And it gets rid of my garbage free of cost, right? I don't do scrap metal, because in here it's just the stockpile scrap metal is just it's too much, and I don't have a trailer attached for that. The majority of I use the majority of the floor space in here for my firewood, because I don't need 6 feet of overhead space for myself. I lived in a cargo van for years where all I had was maybe like 4.5 feet, and so I was always stooped over, and I never fully stood upright in my van. In here I can stand fully upright. I can stretch out, but when I store firewood for the winter, in the winter, I don't get full cords. I don't get large amounts of wood all at one time. I sometimes do construction site cleanups, or I walk past or ride my bike past open bins. And if I find large amounts of scrap wood, oh yeah, I'll grab it, especially if it's clean, right? Clean and dry. And I also find a lot of deadfall, mainly tree limbs, right? We get a lot of windstorms around here and stuff does that, right? Well, anyways, I switched over to dry waterless composting setup, but again, I didn't want to have to, shit in a bucket for a month and then have to clean that up. And I didn't want to accumulate a whole farm of buckets outside, because I'm not on a property, I'm on the street, I'm on the roadside, and I've got constant complaints and occasional and frequent visits from police and bylaw. So I didn't want to have to deal with the sewage management in that manner either, and I'm not dropping it on the ground. So I kept going through Google, searching online, and I learned about incinerator toilets, but then when looking up the cost, realized I can't afford that. And I already got a wood stove, and I'm already using a bucket. I'm still looking for a toilet seat. I'm wanting to build, I want to remove, okay, I have a furnace in here that's ancient, and it's non-functioning, and I smashed it, literally just, the only part that works on it is the blower motor. And anyways, later on, the furnace is going to come out. I'm going to rip it apart, keep the blower motor. Eventually, I'm going to redesign something around the wood stove with that blower motor, so I have a little bit of forced air heat to go through the RV eventually, right? It's a long time side burner project. It's not something that's important. The wood stove is overkill. It fully heats this thing. I don't care if it's -30 with a -40 wind chill. I don't care. I can get it 35 degrees Celsius inside the motorhome in the dead of winter. There's literally a 50 to 60 degree temperature difference between going outside and coming back inside, right? It is literally balmy in here. I don't even know why I got clothes on right now, really, right? Oh, that's just because I'm not burning a lot right now. I'm allowing the temperature to stay mild, not too warm, right? But so anyways, I improvised my own incinerator setup. Now the principal use of an incinerator toilet is, again, you don't just let it sit for a month. You're not filling a 5-gallon pail full of dookie and then hitting the fire switch. With me, all I'm using is a small, like a small 3-gallon pail. It's the same diameter as a 5-gallon, but it's not as tall. And anyways, that pail, I can use it once or up to a couple, like basically daily use, a single day's use if I have to poop that much. But typically, I only use it once or twice a day. That's it, right? And I don't leave it in there to let it dry. It's not vented, right? I haven't built my toilet to where it's got, like a vent pipe going out of it or anything like that. It's just simply a pail with a lid on it, right? Just a cover. And the minute I use it, I just use one of the tools from the wood stove, and I mix the poop into the sawdust ash mix to get rid of the smell, and that's immediate. That hides the smell fast. I more or less adopted something that my cat does, I adopted something that cats do, right? And they cover up their waste when they do their business outside or in a litter box. They cover it, right? And anyways, hey buddy, hey kitty. So what I do is I use that wood stove tool, and I mix the sawdust ash to basically batter the number 2, and then I scoop it out, like the hands free. I'm not reaching it. I'm not putting on gloves or anything. I just scoop it out and I flick it. I toss it into the wood stove. Now, sometimes in the summertime, like if it's extremely hot out, I'll wait till nighttime or really early in the morning to light it, like to put wood in there and light it on fire, just so I'm not, heating myself out 30, 40 degrees Celsius in here and suffering heat stroke from it. It goes out the chimney. Now, on numerous occasions, I have to go up top of the roof anyways to either clean the soot out of the chimney or to clean the dust off my solar panels. And sometimes while it's burning and I just, took a shit and put it in there, it's really a very, very unnoticeable smell, even when you're kind of close to it. And even from down on the ground, if you're outside or driving by or walking by, it's not really noticeable. Now, in any big city, if you've ever driven or, passed by any water treatment facility, like the big, water treatment plants that all major cities have, it always smells like someone left the toilet seat up and left the bathroom door wide open. It reeks, right? You get that? You feel me? Right? And yet this setup that I have is not even close to that, and I'm not polluting water. I'm serious. This is no exaggeration. This is nothing far-fetched. This is not a lie. I am not polluting water. Now, here's something else you got to pay attention to. You watch the news, you watch the media, you hear all this government-related stuff going on, while Canadian politics is literally bullshit, right? It is a fucking shit show. But the biggest thing they keep going on about is carbon this, carbon that, air quality, air pollution, and then they're trying to phase out fossil fuels, and you know what I mean? Like there's all this stuff that's pertaining and targeting towards air quality, but yet nobody is talking about the water. Each time that you, not me, you, unless I'm visiting at your house, there's an exception, yes, myself included, any time that any one of us flush the toilet and we're completely ignorant to what's going on, and we automatically assume, oh, the water treatment takes care of it. Water treatment takes care of it. Yet look in the past couple of centuries in Europe, where the Thames River got highly polluted in England, and there had been numerous similar stories almost around the world, right? Now, with the amount of population growth that we're living in, more people are using the water, and yet we're not paying attention to that. But yet the few of us, so where I came up with the incinerator toilet method was based on a Google search that revealed that Antarctic explorers, people that go and explore down in Antarctica, are using incinerator toilets, so they're not harming the ecosystem in Antarctica. Interesting. Yet nobody knows about this unless I tell them, right? So everything that sometimes I share just through word of mouth and conversation with different people. But I am the first, well, watch my channel. I play the hacksaw. Nobody exists in that, right? I'm the first person. I reinvented the light bulb. I invented my own music. I invented my own sound, my own original sound. And guys have made jokes at me about it, and they're skeptical about, that's not an instrument. You're not supposed to play it like that. And then yet they so and there's a few jokes that went around about it. Well, can you do Metallica? Can you do ACD? No, I don't want to. And then I had somebody else who said, well, that doesn't even sound like, hey, listen, if you want to listen to a six string, go get in your car and turn on the radio. Go listen to your favorite radio station. If you don't like my music, listen to somebody else's, right? Plain and simple, fuck off, right? And I got no problem with that. I don't get all pouty and butthurt because somebody doesn't like my sound. I don't care. I made my own original sound. I invented it, right? I'm bigger than Jimi Hendrix. Get used to it. Get over it. Okay. Now, in terms of the incinerator toilet, and when I introduced it, not literally introduced it, but I introduced the concept during one of the last visits here with police or bylaw. It's the last time I had another run-in with the city. I told them exactly what I was doing, and their jaws dropped. They went, "That is the most eco-friendly." They were impressed. They were like, that. So I'm that one in Canada. I'm the one doing it. Now, in an episode of Mountain Man that I watched years ago on, I think, History TV or something, I remember one of the old mountain men saying something about pooping on a paper plate and tossing it in the fire. Right, as he had his wood stove going in his cabin. And I remember one time, years and years ago, back when I was like elementary school, me and the kids next door, a bunch of us in its neighborhood, I was visiting my next door neighbor in the backyard, and we had a bonfire, fire pit going in the back. And one of us literally fucking dropped trow and just fucking dropped the number 2 right into the fire pit, right? And then we ran away because it stunk. But that was an open fire pit. But when you've got a chimney, right? It changes the whole dynamic of using a fire pit. And so they're like, well, if you're using your wood stove as an incinerator, doesn't it stink? And I went, no, because what it is, let me explain this quickly. And a lot of you already know this. If you've used fireplaces and wood stoves to heat your homes, you already know this. But for those that don't, or for those of you not familiar with having a wood stove in an RV, okay, you know this, heat rises, right? Every time Dad farts, heat rises, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, now the chimney itself is almost like a vacuum cleaner, in a sense, because the constant updraft of the chimney pipe, even when the wood stove is cooling off or it's dying out or it's gone out, right? There's this constant air movement. I tested this because I'm a pothead. I smoke a lot of weed. And you would think, oh, well, I live in an 8 foot wide, 23 foot long motorhome. You think, oh, I'd hotbox myself to death in here. No, not at all. There is never smoke in here. Look. Right? And it's gone seconds later. There's not this constant. It's not like, okay, I've lived around smokers my entire life. My old man's a smoker. Okay? And back in the day, we smoked in the house. Right? Sometimes 2, 3, 4 of us at a time with a big fat ashtray full of butts. And we'd sit there smoking in the house, and the walls would turn yellow, and it was always that constant cigarette smell in the house. Right? I don't have that in the cramped, compact, in the smaller space of an RV compared to a house. I don't have that in here. Right? Whether I'm smoking a vape, smoking a joint, smoking a cigarette, smoking a cigar. I actually don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but occasionally I still smoke cigars. I love cigars. Absolutely love them. Okay? But I switched to vapes just out of fluke. I garbage pick these things and then I refill them, right? So anyways, I discovered just from kneeling down near the bottom at the base of the wood stove and just, you know, having a hoot, or having a drag and watching the smoke movement and the air movement, right? Not to mention when I use propane for heating, I'm not worried about carbon monoxide. The motorhome is not airtight. Now, a travel trailer's different story. Okay. The motorhome has an engine in the front, engine compartment underneath, and air vents in the dash. You following me? Okay. I also have opening windows here and there. And this motorhome has 1, 2, 3 vents. My previous motorhome, the first motorhome that I put the wood stove in, had 4 vents, right? No AC, just vents. And anyways, with this one, I pulled the AC off the roof and replaced it with a vent, right? So now I can open and close it when needed, right? But even in the wintertime, when I got everything shut and I'm hunkered down trying to stay warm, because, I mean, we get some mighty cold snaps from time to time, I cannot keep it airtight in here. And I will not. I don't, because I have open flame, gas, wood stove, everything that, you know, like actual open flame burning, and there's constant air movement and oxygen gets used up. So there's always some kind of air movement. I lost the weather stripping around my front door. I think 2 years ago. So it was cold out one time, like minus 15, minus 10, minus 15 out or whatever. And I went out, brought back a couple of wood pallets. Now, I use lithium-ion batteries, cordless tools, and when it's extremely cold out, I cannot use the cordless saw outside because it literally kills the battery in seconds. Like 30 seconds and poof, it's dead. Battery cuts out. And so what I do is whenever I get pallets, I bring them inside into the motorhome to cut them because it's room temperature. The batteries are more manageable. The batteries last longer that way at a warmer temperature. So I'm not doing it outside. I'm bringing them in. And I save my sawdust that way. I'm not vacuuming. I'm not sweeping or vacuuming in a lawn or the gravel dirt outside to collect sawdust. I do it from inside. Plus I have a shop vac. And anyways, all that wood cutting gets done from inside, and then it, you know, keep the fire going, keep the temperature, right? And everything maintains better that way. But yeah, like I said, the last time I had a potential issue over a bylaw violation, that dirty little secret I was keeping. And that's one of the reasons why, namely the city of Vancouver, was basically threatening to outlaw this lifestyle. Then that's why a lot of people have been quitting it, right? The number one reason why so many people were quitting this was because they weren't being able to manage it right. And another one was where, what was it, a year or two back, there was another guy that stayed here, and he had this large dog. And the guy parked either just up ahead of me or behind me, and his dog would wander around. His dog and my cat got along, ironically, right? And but the dog would just poop here and there, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, right? It was always an ongoing thing. The dog would just poop. And if the old guy didn't follow up and check and pick up the dog's poop, I would sometimes have to remind him, hey, your dog just took a crap right outside my door. Can you pick it up? You know, because he's got the baggies. I don't. But anyways, one day I looked outside and I found 2 poop bags tied, like they were closed. They were tied up outside, just outside, like on the ground, like about, you know, like 8 feet away from my door. And I didn't go bang on the door and say, oh, get rid of your dog's crap. You know, what are you doing? You know, no, I just looked and went, oh, well, they're in bags. I picked them up and I threw them in the wood stove. And I didn't say nothing to him. I didn't tell him anything. I just simply picked up these poop bags, threw them in the wood stove. And then when the temperature got cool enough, then I prepared a fire and got rid of it. Now, sometimes every couple of days, couple times a week, or even once a week, I just use just a tin can like this. And where I got my cat's litter box set up in the front, and there's another spot that he uses just underneath the fridge. I move all the dry litter out of the way, right? The sawdust and ash mix, whatever's dry, the unused part of it. And I find the part where he's peed in it or pooped in it, and I literally scoop that out, usually the bottom part of the litter box, and I just dump it in the wood stove. And then I just get a bunch of dry kindling, scrap wood, dry kindling, split it all up with the hatchet, and get a fire started, and that evaporates all the urine out of it, and burns it all away, and then the ash is reusable over and over and over again. I have literally endless ash, right? And I found, okay, if I put too much sawdust in the litter box, then he's tracking sawdust all over the place. The front driver's seat is covered in sawdust from him using his litter box. But I found the ash part of it doesn't track around as much with him. It doesn't stick to his paws, right? But, you know, when the weather's mild, when the weather's warm, and we have a really dry climate here anyways, he goes outside all the time, right? The only time he stops going outside is when it gets extremely cold, and then we just got inches of snow, or even a foot of snow just suddenly dropped overnight or something, right? And then all of a sudden there's a certain point where he refuses to go outside. I once screamed at him and kicked him out. I said, go outside, go outside, go outside. And I shut the door, and I left him out there for like an hour or two, right? Outside, thinking he was going to do his business. Just let him sit out there. Oh no. 2 hours later, he's at the door. He's at the door crying to come in again. And I let him in. And I kid you not, he held it the whole time he was outside. He made a beeline right to his litter box and did his business after sitting outside for 2 hours when I told him, go outside and pee. Right? Go outside to poop. No, the cat come back in and made a beeline to his litter box after sitting outside in the freezing cold for an hour or two. And then I realized, okay, no point in forcing that, right? If he refuses to go in the snow, there's no point in trying to force him to do it. And so then whenever the weather changes, his behavior, my cat's behavior is really predictable. I just let him do his thing, right? And I've accepted that. Now I've arranged it and made it now where when he does his thing, I can clean up after him, and it's not a big job. And I don't let it accumulate for weeks or months. Like I'm not that lazy. Whenever if I smell it, I'll clean it up. Or if I just simply notice it, if I look and I see, okay, it's getting pretty, gross. And another way I can tell when his litter box needs cleaning is the amount of times I've cleaned out the wood stove and the amount of sawdust that I keep accumulating. All of a sudden, I just need somewhere to put it. So I realized, okay, I got extra ash, I got extra sawdust. Oh, I might as well just clean the cat's litter box out and replenish his litter box, right? Keep his litter box clean. So that's the other way I keep my floor and my wood stove clean. I have a bucket, a metal bucket that collects the ash and embers, right? And what I do is I don't just scoop out the wood stove after a fire and then use the ash after it's been hot. I allow the ash to settle in that pail for a period of time, because the first or second winter I started using the wood stove and then learned about using the dry composting mix, I accidentally melted a hole through the side of a pail. And to avoid that, I didn't want a pail with a hole in the side of it, because I didn't want the leaks or the smell coming out of it. And I ended up having to toss that one out or burn it. And I learned all these things just in the last handful of years, 3-4 years, 2 years, coming up on my 3rd year in this motorhome. And then since 2019 or 2020, in the previous motorhome, setting up the wood stove. Yeah. But anyways, that's the gist of it. And yeah, I think I'm the first person in Canada who's taken that waterless composting toilet to a whole other level. So instead of dealing with what they call the human manure, right? The manure part of it, they call it basically making my own fertilizer. I don't do that. I just single use or a day's use. Say I've had one of those days where I'm not feeling that well and all of a sudden it's just coming out of me. I might use the toilet, we'll say 2 or 3 times, but each single use or daily use, it always gets scooped out immediately and chucked into the wood stove. I don't wait for it to dry. I don't wait for it to mulch. I don't wait a month just to take it outside and then have to handle it again. Know what I mean? I don't have an outside storage system where I'm, created my own free fertilizer. I don't have that. I don't do that. And it's something that I never have to walk out the door with it. I'm serious. I never have to walk out the door with it. So I hope you got something out of that. And if you're in the same dilemma, if you're full-time RVing, full-time boondocking, and or you're dry camping, right? This method, I'm not kidding you. You need to learn it, find out how to do it, and do it, because so many people are having a hard time and struggling with this one serious issue. I waited a lot of years to finally start coming out about this, because I was making mistakes on my part and I was breaking a law, right? I was seriously breaking a bylaw that was threatening to have me, like huge fines and other problems later on, which would have ultimately led me to losing the motorhome and losing the lifestyle and having to quit it. And I vowed to a lot of people that I'll never go back into the cost of housing. I'll never pay for housing again. I'll burn it. I've threatened arson. I've threatened to put neighbors out on the streets. Like, imagine if I move into an apartment building and I got no money and I'm on the threat of being evicted. Well, fuck you. I'm just going to... To me, the landlord's just a ripoff. Right? Not just to me, but to everybody. Right? And I don't care. I don't care if I end up, committing a crime and then displacing all the tenants out on the streets and make everybody and their children homeless. I don't care. Because I've done it for the last now almost 20 years living like this. And I'm the center of attention everywhere I go. And I don't even mean to be the center of attention, but I become the center of attention. Because I live 99% cheaper than the rest of you, and they don't like it one bit. Because they're stuck in the wrong end of it. I'm not. Anyways, that's a whole other topic.